Many people who read their Bibles are kind of ignorant to the covenantal curses that God He gave to the Jewish people. God told the Jewish people that He gave a list of blessings, and He said if they followed God and followed His commandments, that God would bless the Jewish people. But if they disobeyed God and worshipped other gods, then God would He had a list of curses. And you could find those curses if you go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 29. And I mean, just in 28 alone, if you just go through them, this is what God spoke to the Jewish people through Moses, starting at verse 15 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. But it shall come about, if you do not obey the Lord your God to observe to do all His commandments and His statutes, which I charge you today, that all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the country. Cursed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed shall be the offspring of your body, and the produce of your ground, the increase of your herd, and the young of your flock. Cursed shall you be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will send upon you curses, confusion, and rebuke in all you undertake to do, until you are destroyed and until you perish quickly, on account of the evil of your deeds, because you have forsaken me. The Lord will make pestilence cling to you until He has consumed you from the land where you are entering to possess it. The Lord will smite you with consumption, and with fever, and with inflammation, and with fiery heat, and with the sword, and with blight, and with mildew, and they will pursue you until you perish. The heaven which is over your head shall be bronze, and the earth which is under you iron. The Lord will make the rain of your land powder, and dust from heaven it shall come down on you until you are destroyed. The Lord shall cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You will go out one way against them, but you will flee 7 ways before them. And you will be an example of terror to all the kingdoms of the earth. Your carcasses will be food to the birds and the sky, and to the beasts of the earth, and there will be no one to frighten them away. The Lord will smite you with boils of Egypt, and with tumors, and with the scab, and with the itch, from which you cannot be healed. The Lord will smite you with madness, and with blindness, and with bewilderment of heart, and you will grope at noon, as the blind man gropes in darkness, and you will not prosper in your ways, but you shall only be oppressed and robbed continually, with none to save you. You shall betroth a wife, but another man will violate her. You shall build a house, but you will not live in it. You shall plant a vineyard, but you will not use its fruit. Your ox shall be slaughtered before your eyes, but you will not hear of it. Eat of it. Your donkey shall be torn away from you, and will not be restored to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and you will have none to save you. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, while your eyes look on and yearn for them continually, but there will be nothing you can do. A people whom you do not know shall eat up the produce of your ground and all your labors, and you will never be anything but oppressed and crushed continually. You shall be driven mad by the sight of what you see. The Lord will strike you on the knees and legs with sore boils from which you cannot be healed. from the sole of your foot to the crown of your head. The Lord will bring you and your king, whom you set over you, to a nation whether neither you nor your fathers have known, and they shall serve other gods, wood and stone. You shall become a horror and a proverb and a taunt among all the people where the Lord drives you. You shall bring out much seed to the field, but you will gather in a little, for the locusts will consume it. You shall plant and cultivate vineyards, but you will neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm will devour them. You shall have olive trees throughout your territory, but you will not anoint yourself with the oil. For your olives will drop off. You shall have sons and daughters, but they will not be yours, for they will go into captivity. The crickets shall possess all your trees and the produce of your ground. The alien who is among you shall rise above you higher and higher, but you will not go down, but you will go down lower and lower. He shall lend you, but you will not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you will be the tail. So all these curses shall come upon you and pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you would not obey the Lord your God by keeping his commandments and his statutes which he commanded you. They shall become a sign and a wonder on you and your descendants forever, because you did not serve the Lord your God with joy and a glad heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom the Lord will send against you, in hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, and in the lack of all things. And he will put an iron yoke on your neck until he has destroyed you. The Lord will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as the eagle swoops down, a nation whose language you shall not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, who will have no respect for the old, nor show favor to the young. Moreover, it shall eat the offspring of your herd and the produce of your ground until you are destroyed. Who also leaves you no grain, new wine or oil, nor the increase of your herd or the young of your flock, until they have caused you to perish. It shall beseech you in all your towns until your high fortified walls in which you trusted come down throughout your land, and it shall besiege you in all your towns throughout your land which the Lord your God has given you. Then you shall eat the offspring of your own body, the flesh of your own sons and of your own daughters, whom the Lord your God has given you. During the siege of distress by which your enemies will oppress you, the man who is refined and very delicate among you shall be hostile toward his brother and toward the wife he cherishes, and toward the rest of his children who remain, so that he will not give even one of them any of the flesh of his children, which he will eat, since he has nothing left during the siege and the distress by which your enemy will oppress you in all your towns. The refined and delicate woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her foot on the ground for delicateness and refinement, shall be hostile toward the husband she cherishes, and toward her son and daughter, and toward her afterbirth which issues from between her legs, and toward her children whom she bears, for she will eat them secretly for lack of anything else. During the siege and the distress by which your enemy will oppress you in your towns, if you are not careful to observe all the words of this law which are written in this book, to fear this honored and awesome name, the Lord your God. Then the Lord will bring extraordinary plagues on you and your descendants, even severe and lasting plagues and miserable and chronic sicknesses. He will bring back on you all the diseases of Egypt, which you were afraid, and they will cling to you. Also every sickness and every plague which not written in the book of this law, the Lord will bring on you. The Lord will bring on you until you are destroyed. Then you shall be left few in number, whereas you were as numerous as the stars of heaven, because you did not obey the Lord your God. It shall come about that as the Lord delighted over you to prosper you and multiply you, so the Lord will delight over you to make you perish and destroy you, and you will be torn from the land where you are entering to possess it. Moreover, the Lord will scatter you among the peoples from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth, and there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone, which you or your fathers have not known. Among those nations you shall find no rest, and there will be no resting place for the sole of your foot, but the Lord your God will give you a trembling heart, failing eyes, and despair of soul. Your life shall hang in doubt before you, and you will be in dread night and day, and shall have no assurance of your life. In the morning you shall say, would that it were evening, and in the evening you shall say, would that it were morning, because of the dread of your heart, which you dread, and for the sight of your eyes, which you will see. The Lord will bring you back to Egypt in ships by the way about which I spoke to you. You will never see it again. And there you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies, and as male and female slaves, but there will be no buyer. And then it just goes on of the covenantal curses that God, this was to the Jewish people through Moses, and you can't help but think when you read that, you can't help but think about the Babylonian captivity. Just read the book of Jeremiah. God warned Israel he was going to bring them to Babylon, that King Nebuchadnezzar was going to go in there into Israel and just bring them into captivity to Babylon for 70 years. And actually this is all prophesied. This was prophesied before it actually happened. And after the 70 years were complete, God was going to raise up a king, King Cyrus. You could read prophecies about him, in the book of Isaiah. And God freed the Jewish people from captivity by using King Cyrus. You can't help, when you read that, thinking about the Holocaust. Jewish people were severely persecuted throughout history. What Hitler did, God would, in the Old Testament, God would sometimes raise up wicked, evil, pagan nations to punish his people. He did that with the Assyrians in Isaiah chapter 10. But then God punished the Assyrians because if you look at chapter 10 verse 7 of the book of Isaiah, you'll see that they had evil intentions, God had righteous intentions. So that's why God judged them and punished Assyria, because they did those actions with evil intentions, even though God had righteous intentions, using them to carry out his plan for them because of disobedience. And ultimately, the thing that really was the final thing, what they did, as far as you see, in the Old Testament, there was prophecies about a coming Messiah, and in the Old Testament, and in the New Testament, Jesus fulfilled these prophecies. But you see, even the Old Testament prophesied that the Jewish people were going to reject Jesus as the Messiah. Look at Isaiah chapter 53. And Jesus actually prophesied about the destruction of Jerusalem, and that happened 40 years later. After Jesus prophesied about the destruction of Jerusalem, that happened about 40 years later in the year AD 70. The Jewish people rejected their Messiah. Jesus was the Jewish Messiah. And in the teachings of Jesus, Jesus taught that if anyone from all nations wants to be saved and escape God's wrath, because God's wrath, it says in Romans 1, his wrath is against all ungodliness. And if in James 2:10, it says the way that God judges, it says that if we break one of God's commandments, we're guilty of the whole law. So breaking one commandment gets you into hell, and all sin, everyone sins. So that's the gravity of the holiness of God, and the situation that man is in. God is holy, and he hates and detests sin. And look at the warning that Jesus that Jesus gave in Matthew. If you look at the Gospel of Matthew, it's the first book in the New Testament, in chapter 5, verses 29 to 30. Jesus said, if your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. That was the words of Jesus. Jesus said that. So Jesus also taught that he's the only way to be saved. That's why Jesus was crucified on the cross. He died for the sins of his people. Whoever will believe on him and obey his commandments. Jesus said, you are my friends if you do what I command you, in John chapter 15, verse 14. So if you believe that God raised him from the dead, and that he was the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice for sins, if you believe on him and make him the Lord and Master of over your life, then on Judgment Day, the Bible teaches, you will escape the wrath of God. Those are the only people that will escape the wrath of God under this New Testament covenant. That's the only way of salvation that God provides, to escape his wrath, his hatred for sin. Just look at, let's put it on here, Acts 4:12. I don't know if you have a Bible, check out the book of Acts, chapter 4, verse 12. It says, and there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven that has been given among men by which we must be saved. So Jesus provides the only way of salvation, to be saved, to go to heaven. And of course Jesus spoke about hell. He said it's a place of weeping and gnashing of teeth, where the worm never dies and the fire is never quenched. Jesus said it's eternal punishment and outer darkness. Book of Revelation speaks about hell. It says it's a lake of fire, a place of torment. Well, they'll be tortured, they'll be tormented day and night. And that's pretty much the gospel. That was the fulfillment of the prophecies of the Old Testament as far as the Messiah, his first coming, to be the sacrifice of sin for the sins of God's people. And if you accept Jesus, your Lord and Savior, then you will be saved.